It was a grayish day in Yongchuan City in Huameng. In an abandoned apartment, a man could be seen hanging himself, and during that time, he recalled a vision from his past days. It was a dark time, as he was once a trooper who laid waste to an army and slaughtered innocent lives, and after that, he was severely traumatized. Rolling back to the man, Taehun Kim began choking on his death and later changed his mind. After that, he pushed himself off the ceiling and started coughing all over. He's tried to escape reality many times, but all his desperate attempts failed to do so. Later that day, in Yongchuan City, while all the unbothered citizens walked along the roads, news broke out at XX City saying there were unidentified creatures that were seen roaming around the streets while a fire broke out. And now, the city is completely dysfunctional, which led to a great panic among the residents. The police then stated that they're doing the best they can to locate the origin of the cause. Later at a supermarket, Taehun can be seen shopping peacefully, when all of a sudden, chaos ensues, and we can see that a bunch of civilians look like they're being chased by something dangerous. And that's when creepy little goblins popped out of nowhere and massacred everything in sight. The man then turns around to look at them, and in shock, he thinks he is just hallucinating because of the drug he took last night. After taking a glimpse, one of the three little goblins jumps at him, but its effort is wasted as the man kicks it straight in the face and knocks it away. Taehun then remembered that he didn't even do drugs last night and that he was just trying to hang himself. Then after that, all of the goblins jump on him all together, but this man is built differently, as he picks them off one by one and whacks them all in their faces. He then picks up a knife and vows to keep himself alive and avoid dying in such a place. After that, Taehun covered his face and left the dead goblins in their spots as he walked out of the area silently. In another supermarket, a young schoolboy can be seen swinging his bat around, trying to keep the goblins away from him. He was just put in this situation because he wanted to ditch practice at his school. A classmate tells their coach that their classmate, Bang Hyun-wook, didn't attend their practice because he wasn't feeling well. The coach told them to drag him back, but he left anyway and chose to go to an internet cafe instead. But before that, he went to buy some snacks. So now, in the supermarket, he's been fending himself off from the goblins that have occupied the area. Hyun-wook struggled to fight them, and eventually, the goblins knocked him away with a powerful kick, sending him flying off onto the shelves. But just before he met his end, a frying pan was thrown out of nowhere and hit the goblin right in the face. And just after that, we see that Taehun has come to the rescue and beats down the rest of the goblins easily using his hand-to-hand combat skills. He then tells Hyun-wook that he can follow him if he wants to survive, but in his condition, he has to follow Taehun's orders. Hyun-wook stuttered, but he agreed anyway, and just after that, Taehun heard a loud roar echo across the area and immediately rushed towards it. And seeing the guy rush towards the noise, the kid gets up and follows him to fight as well. Later in the sports equipment aisle, Taehun stopped in his tracks after seeing what he saw right in front of him. As it turns out, a huge, bulky goblin can be seen standing in front of a father of a family who's trying to fend it off to protect his family. Hyun-wook just stood there with weak legs, but Taehun wasted no time as he took the bat from his hand and rushed to confront the beast. And just before the father gets slapped in the face, Taehun comes in clutch and whacks the monster right in the face, up and down. But all of his attacks sent back a huge recoil, as if the monster had stone-like skin. He strikes it again, but the beast catches it and crushes the bat like paper. The monster then clenches its fist and attempts to punch him. Luckily, he was able to dodge it and immediately went right back at it again with a broken handle of a tennis racket. Taehun manages to stab it in the eye and jumps back a little further. He then runs towards the beast to pummel it with his bat. But before he could, the beast released a powerful scream that was enough to shock everyone in its area and make them unable to move. But Taehun couldn't care less as he tried to make another move and strike the beast down. As the huge monster begins to swing its hand at him, Taehun responds with a scream and catches its punch using his bat. The monster then pushes him off to the side and hits the shelf near him, and now with him out of the way, Hyun-wook is left to fight the monster and later regrets ditching his practice. As he was faced with the monster, a family behind him was on the ground unable to move due to the fear of the monster, Hyun-wook was also paralyzed due to fear. But suddenly, his heartbeat thumps, his hands tremble, and Hyun-wook shouts, "The monster is confused about what he's doing." And to his surprise, blue flames started to grow out of his hands and he felt like something was burning up within his body. He picked up the bat and thought that he could confidently take down the monster. Taehun suddenly came up in the monster's neck and tied fiber wires around its neck, and the monster roared as it was being strangled. While Taehun held the monster down by its neck, he called out to Hyun-wook to take some action. He runs towards the monster and smashes it with a baseball bat and it dies. After the confrontation, several people are left dead while the ones who are alive take refuge inside the building. Hyun-wook contemplates that those 7 hours that just happened felt like 10 years, and every little problem he had in the past combined does not even compare to 1 minute of what just happened. He looked at Taehun and was curious about his background. Even if their relationship improved a lot, he still found it hard to get along with him, and he's certain that Taehun isn't an ordinary person. Hyun-wook regards Taehun because he kept evacuating the crowd and bravely fought the monsters for their protection, and if it wasn't for him, the situation would have gotten even worse. Taehun suddenly tells Hyun-wook to take off his gloves. He explains that both of them have become special beings called Awakeners, which are very rare since only 4 to 5% of humans can awaken. Hyun-wook holds his baseball bat and explains that it was related to how he suddenly got his powers. He was also surprised that he could see the Awakeners and monsters' abilities by using their phones. Taehun tells him to move the corpses to the butcher's shop in the mall for an unknown reason, but Hyun-wook explains that he saw Taehun with blood stains on his clothes, so I guess we all know the answer. After the turn of events, Taehun briefs everyone on the current situation, and Sunmi is curious as to why he is giving them a report and asks him about the pattern on her hand. Hyun-wook recognizes her as the woman who tried to fight the bastards before, and then Taehun explains to her that if they wish to survive, they'd better listen to him and repay his help by giving him the monster's magical orbs. It's a type of stone found in the monster's bodies. According to Taehun, everyone can see their abilities and special powers on the phone, and the same goes for the monster's stats. They strengthen their abilities by swallowing the magical orbs from the monsters, and then Taehun suddenly tells them that they can't explain at their place much longer. Sunmi questions him and tells him that there's enough food for all of them for a few more days, the power system is still intact, and rescue teams are on their way to help them. He explains that the place is only a temporary shelter and is not safe to stay in permanently, and the thing about rescue teams is false hope because he doesn't think that the outside world would be even better. She asked him how he knew the environment outside when he'd only been in the mall's underground. Taehun told her that it's been only 6 hours and he still doesn't see any rescuers entering the mall. He insists on leaving the place so they can stay at the nearby railway station instead, and explains that the creatures will appear suddenly so they must leave right now. Sunmi complains and shouts at him saying that they're very tired and the survivors mostly consist of elderly people and patients. Then suddenly, Taehun senses something and tells everyone to stay away from the entrance. The gate suddenly gets destroyed and blasts all the civilians in its vicinity. Taehun and Hyun-wook prepare for an incoming attack and a muscle monster steps inside. Taehun knew the monster was tough and the monster suddenly roars and stampedes the civilians. Taehun uses his powers on the monster and pushes it back onto a wall. The monster smiles in excitement since it thinks that it will be a good battle for it. As everyone watched Taehun fight the monster and hoped for a chance of winning, the monster was still able to move even with Taehun's telekinesis. He thought he might be able to break its neck after acquiring the steel-bending strength, but he was wrong. He couldn't hold the monster any longer, so he shouted at Hyun-wook to get everyone out of the place, and suddenly, the monster was able to get out of Taehun's telekinesis. While the monster goes towards Taehun, Hyun-wook picks up a barbell and smashes it against the monster's head. He thought the monster would be done since a vital part was hit, but Taehun suddenly warns him to look out. He looked behind him and saw that the barbell was broken. Then suddenly, the monster appeared in front of him and smacked him with a lot of power, causing him to fall across the fruit shelves. Everyone saw it and was scared by its destructive power. Hyun-wook laid down coughing blood after taking the blow, and after dealing with him, the monster now chases Taehun. While in the midst of the fight, he sees something and immediately rushes towards it. All almost getting punched by the monster, he uses his telekinesis to grab something from above and jumps to avoid the monster. Debris from the place fell onto the monster while Taehun was latched onto the pipe. The monster ran away to avoid the debris, and then Taehun immediately came down and ran towards the section aisle to get the jerry can. He throws the jerry can as far as he can towards the monster and flicks the lighter at the same time towards the monster, causing an explosion. Everyone who saw it could not believe what just happened. While they're busy wondering what to do, Taehun immediately comes to Byun-wook's rescue lying in Sun-mi's arms. He asks Byun-wook if he can move and he responds that he'll be fine. She is worried if his lungs would be pierced by his broken ribs, but she thinks that Byun-wook is fine if he can talk, and Taehun thinks it's because his recovery is fast after being an awakener. Taehun tells them that he has a lot to explain, but first, they should get everyone out of this place since it's very dangerous at this rate. He then asks Sun-mi if she knows how to drive and she tells him yes. He commands both of them to find a large car and stand by as he deals with the monster. Then suddenly, the monster is standing menacingly in front of everyone. Taehun then tells them to stop waiting and just go. Everyone looks at the monster and it growls and smiles at them. This scares the civilians, causing them to run away. While this is happening, Taehun confronts the monster and notices that all the attacks he made had no effect on the monster whatsoever. As the chaos ensues and everyone is currently running for their lives, suddenly, goblins appear in front of Hyun-wook and he smashes them with his rod while they run towards the exit. Going back to Taehun, the monster charges his punch and attempts to hit, but he misses while Taehun cuts the monster's arm with his cleaver. The monster was sturdy because all of Taehun's tools for fighting monsters were destroyed, but it was no problem for him because he's faster. On Hyun-wook and Sun-mi's side, everyone finally got outside, but they were all surprised as they looked at the environment. It looked like a ghost town with no signs of life or rescue to come onto them. While the civilians were busy despairing, Sun-mi was on edge, seemingly looking for something. Then she found it. She was actually looking for a bus to use as a means of transportation, while Hyun-wook and Sun-mi went towards the bus. Then suddenly, something came out the window, and Taehun was seen clinging on to the monster in midair as they fell towards the ground while they battled for life and death. After the two fell while fighting midair, Taehun tumbles off the monster and is surprised to see that it's still standing. He then shouts to the two behind him to stop posing like statues and run away from the area. After that, he picks up a yield sign from the ground and uses it as a weapon against the monster. Meanwhile, Hyun-wook and Sun-mi run their way into the bus. And after finding the key, we pan to one of the most anime things to happen in this chapter as Taehun and the monster exchange strikes at one another, trying to give enough time for the two to escape. The fight still kept on going as the monster stood his ground, then proceeded to charge at Taehun, and at the same time, Sun-mi used full speed on the bus and rammed the monster with it. As soon as Taehun got out of the way, the monster got pushed off while it took all the bus hits right to its body, but it still managed to stand in its place and hold the bus off. As the monster is left holding the bus, Taehun sees this as an opportunity to snap the life out of it while it's distracted. And after a long struggle, he finally managed to break its neck and have it pushed off into the building. With this, the crowd went silent and wondered if the monster was really dead. After that, Taehun calms himself and is now relieved that the battle is over, but then he just can't help but think that he was trying to commit suicide earlier that day. Later in the bus, Hyun-wook is seen just laying on top of Sun-mi after ramming the monster. After telling him to get off her, she then asks where the monster was, and he says that she's the one who took care of it. And after escorting her out of the bus, they see that Taehun is standing on the corpse of the beast. He then proceeds to chop it open as the two are left puzzled by what they're seeing. The two couldn't be more baffled as they watch Taehun just eat something that came right from the monster's insides. Even though the nurse will eventually get to find out his motives, she couldn't possibly utter a single word in such a bizarre situation. And from there, Sun-mi knew already that there was a devilish presence inside of Taehun, and she could tell that something much worse was yet to come than the monster itself. That's all for part 1 of the manhwa. If you enjoyed the video, comment down below, like and subscribe. See you all next time. Have a good day, love and peace.